Hi there, I'm Alexis. I'm founder and director of Spidergap, a 360-degree feedback tool. We're relatively new to the market, very new to the market, but have been growing quickly, particularly with companies with between 500 and 10,000 staff. In the last few months, we've been used by a variety of companies, including Cisco, Fitness First, and TNT as well, starting to use as well, and getting lots of feedback that we're getting some dramatic results. Before starting Spidergap, I was actually a management consultant, and I'm going to explain a little bit about why that's particularly relevant to what I do now a little bit later. So apologies for the brevity on my background. So in this session, I'm going to talk about a fundamental problem with existing approaches to 360 feedback, and introduce a new approach that we found gets better results whilst using less of employees' time. This should take about 15 minutes, so I said it'd be quick. I'm then going to do the promotional bit with an offer from Spidergap, but then we'll have about just over 10 minutes for some questions and some discussions as well. So if you do have any questions throughout the presentation, if you could write them down or tweet them or whatever, and we'll cover them at the end. So let's begin with a show of hands, because that's been popular today. How many of you have heard of 360-degree feedback? Excellent, all of you. And how many of you currently use it within your organisation? Okay, so all of you have heard of it, half of you use it currently. Those of you, well, indeed all of you, will be aware that 360-degree feedback is a process in which a range of people provide feedback about an employee with the aim of helping them to focus their personal development. So here's an employee, we'll call her Claire. Claire, or perhaps her line manager or a coach, will identify who's going to provide feedback about Claire. Each person then provides their feedback, assuming either some manual or technological steps in here, and a report is then generated, or someone laboriously generates a report to combine that feedback. Typically a mix of quantitative scores, ratings, and qualitative explanations and examples. The employee, or Claire, then has a conversation with a line manager or coach to review these results, and finally Claire, very happy Claire, ends up with a clear, prioritised list of actions that she's going to take to improve her performance going forward. Now, when this is done well, this results in Claire and indeed the whole organisation identifying their areas to improve, making those improvements and getting a lot of benefit. However, we've seen that lots of companies are experiencing a bit of a problem with this. And right now, organisations are working really hard just to survive in a very difficult financial environment. And if you're going to succeed in this current climate, you need to retain your best employees and allow them and help them to grow within the organisation. Yet you're having to do this with less budget and with employees that've got less time than ever before. Now, 360-degree feedback should be a tool that will help you to do some of this. But existing approaches often fall short, and I'm going to explain one of the key reasons why that is. So, the first three steps happen as we would hope. Feedback's collected, a report is generated. And the report shows the individual's current performance against a range of areas. These are typical reports from various tools. Apparently in this case identifying that Claire's got a 79.2% in inspiration. Now these reports aim to make it clear for Claire, other employees, where they need to focus their attention when it comes to personal development. But there's a problem. They don't. They don't tell her where she needs to improve the most. Sure, the reports show her how her current performance is, but not where she needs to be performing, and therefore where she needs to improve the most. To identify those areas, you need to understand Claire's role, her career ambitions, her relationships with other people with which she works, and so it becomes the job of Claire's line manager or a coach to have that discussion, a long conversation about the feedback that she's got, and as a result, the areas she should focus on. Now, unfortunately, that discussion takes about all of the hour that Claire had put aside for reviewing the feedback that she had got. And it's this time that could have been used for identifying the actions that she's going to take, and maybe even taking some of those actions. But run out of time, no chance. Also, the conversation with that line manager can tend to get a little bit diluted. So that line manager may end up overemphasising areas that they particularly agree with, or playing down bits of feedback that perhaps they don't agree with so much, which isn't great. Also, it can become unclear where to focus improvement, particularly if you've got a lot of areas that have got very similar scores. For example, identifying that Claire has a 79% in inspiration and 77% in motivation makes it very difficult for her to identify what she should do about that. And in fact, I was speaking to an HR director I think yesterday who was saying that they looked at their current 360 process, they're new to the organisation, found it was basically fine, but that people seemed to be complaining that they weren't getting their top priorities out of the exercise. Looked at the process, looked at who was involved, pretty much how you'd expect, but then looked at the results and found that all employees across all areas were getting scores of between 8.2 and 9.2 out of 10. Now that makes it fundamentally pretty difficult to identify your areas to improve. And as a result, if you've got that lost time, if you've got the diluted feedback, and if you're not able to clearly see the differences, it dilutes the whole impact of the exercise. So, Claire then gets frustrated, and organisations who have found a better way of supporting development soon get to poach Claire. So, how can we overcome this problem? Well, I mentioned that previously I was a management consultant before starting Spidergap. I typically worked with large global organisations, working with their business support functions, HR, finance, marketing, etc., looking at how their departments were perceived by their internal customers, looking at where are they now in terms of their current performance, and where do they need to be as a department, as a service provision. We used gap analysis to identify the biggest gaps and quickly identify, okay, what are the areas, as a result, where are the areas that you're going to improve, and what's your actionable strategy or list of actions that you're going to take to address these areas. Now, one of my HR clients, bless them, I owe them a big bottle of champagne, they said, have you ever used this with individuals? So we started looking at whether this could be applied in the area of personal development and 360s. And we found, and apologies for the spelling mistake, actually, we can use gap analysis. We found it's possible to use gap analysis to achieve a lot more from 360-degree feedback. Unlike other approaches to 360s, this approach provides you with reports that show the employees exactly where they need to focus improvement on. And this removes or significantly reduces the need for a line manager or coach to spend time reviewing and interpreting the results of the employee. Instead, they can focus on planning the action and actually taking action on the development with the employee. For example, they could spend time identifying relevant training courses based on their biggest gaps, or identifying relevant mentors in the organisation, or suggesting reading material, or actually, even better, buying and downloading that audiobook, signing them up for that training course, taking them and introducing them to that mentor,